Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege is a 5v5 first-person multiplayer shooter created by Ubisoft in 2015. It has garnered a large player base over the past decade and has since fallen off like 6 or 7 times, had one of the most generational runs of any video game ever, and has fundamentally ruined every player's self-worth. Its biggest strategy? The rush. It is a quintessential part of the game, allowing players to blitz the enemy defenses before a proper measurement can be set up to prevent entry. Today, I shall discuss how to rush in a basic way, since that's going to be helpful. So, now that we are in the menu of the game, we want to head over to the Operator tab. This, as you can see, is where attackers and defenders are. We want to focus on attackers, and specifically we want to focus on frontline and breach. Frontliners are more designed to get in and get the whole team pushing into that site, and breaches are designed to get in. They are designed to open up ways to get in without really the use of frontline support. All in all you need to know is that some of these operators are essentially frontline breachers, and you really kind of do need to focus on that. Of course, not every operator is built for rushing. Operators that have low speed, like Thatcher, are never going to be able to rush. I mean, you could, but it really isn't something you're going to want to do. So in terms of operators that you would want to rush with, operators that typically have the ability to breach. And although most of these operators don't have the ability to breach, that does not mean that they cannot breach into site. All in all, I would say that there are 3 types of rushers in this game. You have people who play characters, I would say, designed to rush. People who play characters designed to push enemy off of sight, and I would say operators that are designed to stick on site. Now, with Ash, she is basically the operator to rush with, because this little doohickey right here allows you to essentially get a way into sight without really slowing you down. Because as we can see, fires an explosive breach round that burrows into a surface and automatically detonates. The breaching into a surface isn't what we necessarily care about here, it's that it automatically detonates. Because as you can see with Thermite, it doesn't say that it automatically detonates. Although he might be able to destroy reinforced walls and surfaces, that's not really the point of a rush. So she is incredible in that regard. And as we can see down here, she is a 3 speed. She is one of, if not the fastest operators in the game, which allows you to get to a rush point and be able to get in there as soon as possible, which not a lot of characters are able to do. And if we go over her loadout now, we can see that she has 2 primaries, 2 secondaries, and 2 gadgets. I would ultimately choose these 3 as what you want to run, and I would choose the Holloway site, because if you're rushing, Unironically, I would not recommend um, any of these sites, considering the weapon you have is an absolute laser. Of course, I would say for newer players that the flash hider and the vertical grip is honestly incredible on this weapon, because as we can see, the recoil pattern, it doesn't go out wide, and the range at which it moves up is kind of okay. I would say that single fire shooting isn't necessarily what you're going to be doing anyways, so worrying about that is kind of pointless. It has a pretty decent ammo magazine, and it's not like you're going to run out of any bullets anytime soon. Your ADS time is increased because you have a laser sight. Every single weapon in the game, you want a laser sight on. Although it can put you at a disadvantage if you're facing a player who's miles better than you, it really, really helps when it comes to ADS. Because it will allow you to get into sight, immediately ADS, immediately kill someone that is at a huge disadvantage now. Even if they're prepared for you, if you can ADS first, you are winning that gunfight. And of course, the Muzak, it's a great weapon. As long as you have, like a laser sight, which does obviously help with the ADS time being 0.19 seconds, which is insane, and a muzzle brake, which obviously can help a lot. If you're trying to get someone from a further distance, maybe, I don't know, you decide that you want to open up a wall in sight and you don't have any ammo left and there's no point in reloading. Now, this is going to sound a bit crazy. I would not run claymores on her. I would instead run breach charges, because fundamentally there are going to be hatches on pretty much every map in a spot where you can reach whilst rushing. And almost, I would say 60% of the time, they will reinforce hatches above them, not below them. Which I know is crazy. So ultimately, I would run a breach charge. But if there is a circumstance where you cannot use a breach charge, you 100% should run the Claymore. Now, Blitz is a bit of a different rush. Blitz is designed to push enemies out of sight. They are designed to essentially take the anchors out of sight, anchors like smoke, anchors that just generally have really good hold on sight that stop a lot of operators from being able to get into the site, allowing the enemy team to come back and regroup. Blitz completely, I would say, annihilates smoke in a way that is kind of special. Kind of fast operator, but kind of chunky as well, you know? Obviously, smoke isn't going to do a lot against this guy. And although he is quite good for getting operators out of sight, he only has a secondary weapon, which I believe is completely fair. But it is an okay handgun. Obviously, you just want to run muzzle brake and laser, because I do genuinely feel like that's probably the best idea for these semi-automatic weapons. Now, of course, you need a way into sight. This is your way into sight. A breach charge. Absolutely love me a breach charge. I mean, fundamentally, the fact that you can get through unreinforced walls and stuff, maybe they're like in a site that's actually deep into the map that you can't get to necessarily from outside of the building very easily, you can just use this as a way to move around the map easier. And of course, smoke grenades for plants if you have the bomb, which I wouldn't recommend because you most likely will end up dying off of one of these kinds of rushes, but it's always useful to have. And okay, so this is a strange one, but I would honestly say that Blackbeard has a lot of utility now, especially for rushing. Although he is a very, very slow operator, he does have a lot of health, making him be able to last longer. He can ultimately kind of push people out of sight, but that's not necessarily his role in a rush. His role is to stick on sight. His role is to get in there, make his presence known, and kind of hide behind his shield until till your team is able to come through. Now, an important thing about this is that it breaks through breakable defenses, which is kind of insane. There's not many things that can stop his shield, fundamentally. And, of course, obviously, apart from the shield, he has 2 primary weapons. I would probably never even run the SR-25. I mean, although it's a pretty looking gun, I would 100% run his assault rifle. And funnily enough, because of how big the assault rifle is, I would recommend you actually use one of the magnified sights. And also, because of how his recoil pattern works, I would say it's better to have the compensator. Because obviously, horizontal movement is kind of going to mess you up more than vertical movement. And it has a lot of vertical movement when you don't have the compensator on. Look at that at the bottom where the recoil pattern is. That is a huge difference. So 100% you would go the compensator on this weapon. Additionally, and I forgot to mention this, you do want to run the horizontal grip just to increase his speed a little bit. Obviously the laser is very useful all the time. Must run on that. And his gadgets, a frag or a claymore. Before, I would have said, well, I say before, but like, I don't know, like a year or 2 ago when they decided to change how frag grenades worked, I would 100% have said frag grenades, but a claymore is definitely more useful in this situation. If he is able to survive, maybe get down a claymore in sight, that is very dangerous towards the end game. Now, onto the operators who are defending that I feel you should be most scared of when rushing. Now, some of these operators you just won't have. Some of these you will have, right? And some of these operators you can't necessarily really play around. But one of the biggest, and I would say one of the best ways to keep an enemy off of sight, this is probably the biggest one, is smoke. Because he essentially is, as it says down here, anti-entry, because he can just detonate toxic gas whenever he feels like it. And it's not one of these things that you can just run through, because obviously it does damage. And most of these operators that you're rushing with don't have a lot of health. And obviously, there is like not a lot that you could even do against the smoke as attackers, right? The good thing about this, though, is that it does deal damage to the enemy team, if they do not have a mask on, which is a really, honestly, kind of fun little detail. But honestly, I would say the biggest thing to worry about with him is probably not even the FMG9. It's probably the shotgun, because honestly, you will probably get one shot by this. It is very, very potent. I would 100% be terrified of this shotgun, although the FMG9 is a pretty lasery kind of weapon. It's something that you can definitely win against, just because the recoil isn't really that great. And of course, the only secondary weapon they would be running is the SMG-11, because this is the weapon they will be using against you. Now, of course, the recoil means that you probably are safe, and obviously, if you're a shield operator, realistically, smoke will not be a problem for you. Now, on to probably one of the scariest operators I think I've ever dealt with. Capcan. He is terrifying. Not even because of the fact that he just has these traps that he can just put anywhere, but because he can put, I think, 5 on one door, which is going to just kill you if you run into it. He is deadly. He's kind of quick, but he is also chunky. And I think he is definitely someone you should look out for, especially considering not only does he have the sausage, which is honestly quite a decent little shotgun, depending on how close you are. And I would say probably one of my favorite guns of all time, because it's just a really solid weapon. He doesn't have an SMG as a secondary, which is honestly really, really good. You know, especially when you want to rush. And none of the Defender gadgets should be a huge worry to you. That are like anti-entry. What else should I cover? Maybe. Okay, so the last defender I would personally say can really kind of stop you, honestly, is Mira, purely because of this. Her her ability deploys obviously a one-way bulletproof mirror on breakable and reinforced walls. And obviously it can be broken, but at that point, because if we read the last sentence, can also be ejected to create a murder hole. That is incredibly terrifying, especially if you are trying to enter sight, because they have eyes on you before you have eyes on them. And this is pretty dangerous, in all honesty. I think it's probably something you should be terrified of, especially if you are rushing with someone like Blackbeard, because that gives them a lot of time to be able to prepare to deal with you. Now, her loadout, I would say, is kind of cracked. I mean, unironically, the SMG is actually kind of really insane, I think. Like, fundamentally, I think it just is an incredible primary weapon that I think you should definitely be scared of. And she's definitely going to be running this shotgun to be able to combine with this mirror as a way to help her anchoring teammates. However, this little gadget down here, the C4, is what makes her, I would say, the most terrifying, especially if you're rushing. Because, let's say you're on Clubhouse, and they're upstairs. There is a certain wall that will definitely have a mirror on it if you are not careful. If they see you coming through there, they now have a C4 to place on the door above you. So as soon as you walk in or run in and expect to get a kill, boom, you are gone. I do seriously think that the combination of these three paired with this is so insanely incredible. And I do fear that she is probably the operator that I would be most scared of to rush, especially on those sites that are a little bit more difficult to get to. Now, of course, you know, these operators that are supposed to stay on site or maybe have site lingerance aren't going to be the only operators that you will see on the enemy team. I think fundamentally, you are going to see operators like Smoke, operators honestly like Dark, operators like Bandit or Kaid, operators like Solus. Honestly, Fenrir is a huge one. Azami, probably, you could see. I don't honestly typically see a lot of use of like most of these operators most of the time. Valk is probably got the most useful intel for the team, but she isn't typically useful apart from the intel. And of course, Cav is always someone you never want to face. But I really wouldn't worry about her because she's not really the best pick out there. I really wouldn't say that there are many other operators that you should be scared of. And of course, going back to the attacking side, I think honestly, a team on the attacking side would definitely have a Deimos. You could definitely see some sort of breacher, either like Thermite or Ace. I mean, you can definitely also see characters like Nook, characters like Ash, characters like Sledge as being fairly useful, depending on like site specific stuff and especially how you want to like run a team composition. I could honestly see Grim having a little bit of use, especially in these situations. I think that he is useful intel for your team, but these aren't really things that you have to worry about unless you are obviously running as a team, rushing as a team. Okay, so now that we have discussed the operators that you would want to use and the operators that you should look out for, I think it's very important that we talk about the maps now, and specifically the mapped pool in Ranked, considering it has had a small change recently with the addition of a reworked fortress and with Emerald Plains being taken out. Now, of course, typically in Ranked, you won't see a lot of play from like quite a few of these, but it's always kind of like a 50-50 on whether you ban the right map and the opposing team bans the right map, or you both ban the same map and then you're forced to play another map you don't want. Now, of course, I would say the main picks are obviously like Oregon and Clubhouse. I honestly, I do see quite a bit of like Consular, Bank, and Skyscraper. But in all honesty, all of these maps are very playable except Theme Park. Get Theme Park out of here. Canal, I can live with. Leia, never really played much of Leia, so I can't really help you there. But I think that all of these maps are definitely ones where you can rush. I wouldn't recommend it for all of them, especially maps that like have a lot of like height to their sides. You know, like Skyscraper, I wouldn't really say there is an easy way to rush on Skyscraper. Especially considering rushes can be kind of punishable. I mean, rushes are very punishable on Chalet and Cafe. You could say that rushes are technically punishable on almost every map. But honestly, I would say it's definitely most kind of punishable on Chalet and Cafe. But really quickly, it is important to note that fundamentally how you rush changes quite a bit with, you know, the maps, the operator pool, which is obviously going to limit you in ways. And typically I would say that with most of these maps, it is not advised that you like rush or like rush by yourself. But of course, this is the map pool. I think these maps are pretty good. And I mean, little side note, I would definitely say that I want Favela back in the map pool because it kind of sucks, but I don't know, it's a fun map, I think. Okay, now that we are back in the main menu, we are going to want to test out some of these operators, test their recoil. So, in order to do that, we need to go to the shooting range, which is in playlists. You move over to training. You have tutorials, landmark drill, clear house, field training, deathmatch, and the shooting range. You don't kind of want to do any of these. I mean, you can definitely do the tutorial if you want to, and I'm pretty sure you have to, but the shooting range is where you want to go. So we enter the shooting range, and what is great about the shooting range is, in fact, you have access to every operator in the game. You don't have to own any of them. And you have access to both sides, which gives you a clear overview of realistically the operators you do want to run. But fundamentally, you see like Ash, you see the Blitz, and you see the Blackbeard, right? I would say the easiest to run would be Ash right now. So as you can see, we are currently in the game. We have our, our weapon in our hand. Now we have this. It's a target. As we can see, we have like access to, you know, a silhouette and a bullseye, which is really important. Now over here it says 5 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, and 30 meters. Typically, if you're rushing, I would say that you are within 5 to 10 meters of your range. So typically you would stand as close as you can, kind of in the middle and whatever, and you would just, first of all, look at the middle, and you do not want to pull down originally. You just want to see how high it'll go without you pulling down. Look at that recoil. Not much horizontal recoil, but plenty of vertical recoil. So what you kind of want to do is you kind of want to like pull down a little bit just to really get a feel for how difficult the weapon is going to be, right? And as you can see over here, the bullets, they kind of group up a little bit more. We're actually going to clear that so we can kind of get a better understanding of essentially what we're doing, right? So then next what you want to do is you want to kind of pull down at like a faster rate than which the gun is going to pull up. That is not what I wanted to do, but yeah. See, and even though we do go down, a lot of our bullets are over there. Because initially the recoil is going to keep your gun up for you. And so if you start to kind of like learn the recoil pattern, eventually you'll kind of get to a spot where like you're pulling down at a near perfect rate. As we can see, after that first kind of like introduction to like pulling down at a faster rate, we can see that essentially everything is now on target, right? And that's because, and don't be scared to like mess up, because I guarantee you that, yeah, like look at that. If you mess up, your bullets are not going to go very, very far away. Because a lot of them will end up here. If you end up going like over here, or like over here, down here, or over there, you'll see that even though we might aim for the head, even though a lot of these bullets are going in other places, considering the damage that this weapon does, that is 100% still killing the enemy. So I really wouldn't be scared about it. Now, the bigger issue at hand is that from far away, as you can see, you're not going to be able to do a lot. I mean, maybe you can like kind of hit them from like over here. You know, if you do like singular taps. But realistically, you won't be doing singular taps. And it's at this point which I would say that like, yeah, you're not really going to hit them a lot. And that's why I really wouldn't recommend doing like rushes and like going after an enemy that's like too far away. Right? I mean, this is probably way too close. This is probably like what you're going to see like most of the time. And this is like the absolute limit that I think that you should be at, evidently. Anyways, now that we have kind of gone over Ash, we're actually going to want to back out. And before actually we back out, sorry, as you can see, kind of like bottom left-ish, but more closer to the inside of the screen, you can see the two little people and the little switch. Essentially, you want to press that key on your keyboard. I don't think it will be the 7 key, depending on what kind of keyboard you have. But of course, you just press that, you get taken back here, back to the menu where you decide. Of course, we don't have to go over much. We don't have to go over anything with Blitz because we don't need to test out the recoil. So we'll just head over to Blackbeard. We'll have everything ready, and we'll kind of just check out what's going on. So obviously, as you can see, we have a free look thing that we can do, where if you click down on the mouse, you can look around, and this is so extremely useful because it gives you access to like so much room that you're able to like see and stuff. And if we'll look here, we're like zoomed in way more, right? And ultimately, it's like, okay, if we're from 10 meters away, we can like easily like one tap someone, right? But obviously, if you look at this, our ADS time is really slow, right? But we have a shield. So, unless they're like an absolute god of the game in whatever kind of thing you'd be playing, then you shouldn't really have any fears, right? So now that we're 10 meters away, we want to look and we want to just let it go. Again, we're not really doing much, but as you can see, that is a fairly straight pattern up, which obviously is pretty useful. So we just pull down as much as we can, and look. See how it goes down a lot, but not a lot? That is because we're pulling down not as fast and as hard as we can, because we don't want that or else we're going to get nowhere. But as you can see, quite a lot of the earlier bullets are just on target, like way on target. So now we're going to fire an entire mag trying to control the recoil. And look at that. That's obviously like not too terribly impressive by any standards. But ultimately, with how on target that is, you shouldn't really have much of an issue, especially considering things. Now, by the way, you can also put this shield away. So in case you want increased ADS time, which of course matters quite a bit, you can just have that. Now, of course, you're not gonna necessarily want that, or at least right away you're not gonna necessarily want that. But with how easy it gets put away and like it comes back, this gives you the option to obviously, run around, get into sight, and then immediately switch, and then just like absolutely lay it onto them. Now, of course, I would suggest as soon as you finish shooting, even though like this is what like my brain does, I just kind of like switch thinking, oh, I'm gonna go into my secondary now. Do not do that. Do not do that. You need the shield. You need the shield. You need to crouch. You need to kind of really stop their bullets from hitting you. If you have to look around to see things that are happening, to like check for anything, to ping anything, that's completely fine. But overall, he is kind of going to be very useful, especially, obviously you run, get in sight, pull the shield out. You can crouch and you can shoot if that'll make you feel any better. But overall, it's not really going to be too big of a hindrance to use this guy in any kind of way that you want. Now, I feel like I have to actually talk about the defenders a little bit here to go over what weapons they would be using, weapons Smoke would be using, weapons Capcom would be using, and of course weapons Mirror would be using, which I feel like, especially for like low ranked lobbies, or maybe even like just quick play lobbies, these are like realistically what you should be scared of. Of course, most of them would be using like the shotgun, so we kind of just want to talk about the secondary weapon, the SMG-11. In this case, I do think it is fairly important to talk about it in a sense of the okay. Uh, in the sense that you should only be scared of this guy's ability because you're going to see something kind of crazy right now. Look at that. First shot on target, and then look at this. It just goes up so quickly. Even if I think I try and pull down quite a bit, yeah. It just is everywhere, all over the place. Of course, you know. It is of course terrifying to play against this guy, and you'll notice that like from this kind of range, you'll notice here that there's a quite like wide a range of bullets, and if we quickly shoot off to the side, I am clicking as fast as I can, and that's a really slow fire rate, and a really slow reload time, and a wide spread of bullets, right? So, it's not really something we should be worried about, unless, of course, we're really up close. They don't have to ADS. Look at that. It's safe to say you won't win a gunfight if you're supremely close. Especially if we consider we're close with the SMG. Because look at that. Although it goes off to the left, you can simply kind of not really control it unless you're like the GOAT. But you can kind of like push it, because you'll see that even though we started like here, we go like that. So essentially you kind of want to like, I don't really want to say go like that, but like it is imperative that you kind of like don't really expect this kind of recoil anyways. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that you should be worried about these guys in any sense of the way. Because ultimately, like, this is gonna kill you. Because look, like, headshot right there. Although I'm not really too sure if all of these need to hit you, or if it's just like, specifically one shell needs to hit, or all of them do. But I would kind of assume that all of them have to hit. Now, in terms of like an operator that's coming up, you just aim head level, which is ideally what all of your operators will be at, and they just absolutely laser you like that. But of course, because we're gonna be 10 meters away, and they try and get you. Oh, what's that? They only shoot one bullet. I mean, it does hit you, but realistically, most cases, they're not really going to be able to hit you if you're moving. And, of course, that's huge. I mean, even now, if we head over to this place, it is kind of insane. Because, and I'm not gonna do this because I don't want to embarrass myself, but like you can definitely come in here, targets will move, you can try it with any operator you really want to, but of course that will help you decide on whether this weapon's good or not, especially considering, yeah, look at that. Like that absolutely is not going to kill anyone from this kind of range. Okay, so now we've went over smoke. We need to go over, I would say, the better gun with Capcan. And of course, you know, with this weapon, again, we just gotta let it fly. And as you can see, a lot more bullets are hitting the target. We have a lot more bullets available to us, and it's kind of got a weird recoil pattern, but that's completely okay. And of course, we want to pull it down as much as possible. And as you can see, there is not a ton of recoil on this weapon. So we only need to pull down kind of like a little bit. Okay, that was awful. But ultimately, look, as you can see, this isn't necessarily about how quickly you're pulling down, but how much space you have to pull down. Weapons that are slower and have less recoil typically need more room than, you know, what you can just supply with moving your mouse back into your hand. Pushing your mouse out and moving it back into your hand is like, it's a thing that I would say many people don't do to control recoil, but I will say that just like pulling the mouse down ultimately doesn't do much as well. So I would 100% just like stick with that. You know, maybe hold the mouse a little bit like further back, further in front, and just kind of like pull it back in, you know? And of course, all of this depends on like your mouse weight, your like DPI, your sensitivity, which I really don't think your sensitivity should be that high in the first place, but you kind of get a feel for what you like, for what you want. And of course, if we check out what it will do to a person, aiming for the kind of like head, it does a little bit. You know, of course, if you want to paint a lovely picture of them, that also helps. But I honestly feel like this is a pretty good weapon that you would definitely use on these kinds of operators. So this is definitely a weapon that you should be able to beat, but if you aren't careful, it will 100% stop you, but the weapon isn't really what's scary in this situation. Now, let's talk about probably the final operator that I think is scary. This is Mira. She has an okay weapon. Obviously, we'll let it fly. As you can see, the recoil vertically is pretty much there. And obviously, you know, if we pull down as much as we can within reason, we'll see that the bullets start to spread a lot more. That ultimately can just be down to the fact that you are simply pulling it down. You could be pulling it down like left or right. So ultimately, you kind of want to just like pull it down as straight as you can. And you see it'll go like a little bit left, maybe it'll go a little bit right depending on, you know, which way you're pulling, but ultimately as long as you're just like pulling it down and kind of trying to keep that in control, and making sure that you have enough space in your hand to be able to kind of make it a little bit more impressive, then of course you're going to get somewhere. Now the shotgun, she's not going to use on you unless you're like close range. And even in close range, I can't imagine it's going to do a ton. It's mainly used for like opening holes in walls for her shield, opening hatches, stuff like that. Not really doing much apart from that. You know, even close range, you know, ADS, it does that. Non-ADS, it's a little bit wider. But ultimately, you know, it's a shotgun. It will do a lot of damage. but it's definitely not the weapon you should be terrified of. And of course, like against someone from 10 meters away with this weapon, aiming at your head. This is kind of the bullet spread you should expect. Kind of from just like a player that's like, you know. And these are kind of like the bullets that you would expect to get hit with in a gunfight. So all of these gunfights against all of these operators are very, very winnable, and you should not be intimidated by them in the slightest. Okay, so now that we are once again back in the menu, we kind of want to get used to the maps. We want to see what's going on. We want to see ideal entry points, and we want to kind of see how you enter through those entry points. So, you won't have a playlist like this, but honestly, you need to go to custom game, create local, and I technically have two custom playlists, which includes like a ranked pool, but honestly, this is kind of what we want to do. With the best ranked maps, in kind of my opinion, being Oregon, Clubhouse, Chalet, Night Haven, and Cafe, and we'll basically go ahead and go in, and we're in. You'll kind of see this custom game. You can see like the map options. We just kind of won't really have much of anything. And this is kind of like what it looks. Looks like. Now, of course, we kind of do want to go in. Look at this. We are, of course, going to be the attacker in this situation. And we do not know which kind of location it's at. I don't think we have any prep time anyways, but it doesn't matter too much. Since ultimately we will kind of just be going with Ash anyways, with these kinds of stuffs. And ultimately, once we get in, I'm gonna show different like entry points, right? So we're in. We've got half an hour in here with Ash, and as you can see, we're kind of moving along. We've got like everything. We've got like a camera there that you can shoot to get you like out. You can like lean, and typically, even though like obviously this is a great place to spawn, especially if per se like I don't know, you like come over here and you kind of want to like hit this down, as most people would do. Typically, there's going to be someone here, there's going to be someone like here, and there'll be kind of maybe someone like around this like area, obviously. And this is definitely one of the areas where the bomb can be, between here and kitchen. Now, of course, I would say that ideally you shouldn't rush into this site, because obviously you can have a lot of anchors on this site, a lot of people in, here in the showers. You'll have like someone here, or maybe even up here, keeping guard on this window and here, and even like up here, and I guess kind of back here, but like nobody really even like goes back there anyways. So this is more of like a team area where you would like be breaking in and stuff and such. Similarly, if we come over here, this is another place where the bomb can be, which I think is ultimately kind of like a great thing, you know? And obviously, like, it's all connected, it's all very, like, simple and easy to do. And of course, one of the, you know, better sites is, of course, going to be in the basement. And of course, if you're playing bomb, the bomb will be in this room right over there, and the bomb, I kind of forget where it is in this room, but I think it's like here or something. So of course, there are a lot of ways to get in to the building depending on these kinds of sites. So let me just leave back the way I came, because I kind of want to show off kind of how you would rush into one or both of these sites. Okay, so typically if they are in, you know, obviously like a site that's like upstairs, you'd want to kind of start from here. You'd obviously like spawn in kind of like back here, you know, you'd spawn in, and immediately you're just like going to like run. Now, typically someone can be here, or they might run out here. That's not really going to be too big of an issue though. And ultimately, you can kind of like do things about them. You know, you have a laser, it's pretty good. Honestly, something that like I never kind of really got into was like getting up and just kind of like, okay, I've got to. It's honestly pretty difficult to do, especially like if you're just like if you're not really about that life. If I end up doing it, I'll put it in, but you can definitely get up here. I don't know how consistent it is based on the fact that I just cannot do it for the life of me. Oh, there we go. And then you can get up. Typically, I really do not think you'd want to like use one of your abilities on here. I didn't know I also had that set to ping. That's quite nice. So I wouldn't use like one here. Ultimately, I would kind of just, you know, break down the door with your weapon. And then, of course, obviously, we can use our drone to scope the site out. There might be someone in here. We never know. Typically, there could be someone, like, over in this corner. There could be just someone waiting in here. They will usually probably maybe be, like, someone, like, kind of standing around here, usually. But of course, like, your best bet is to, like, come over here and, kind of, like, scope out with the drone, see what's going on. Of course, if... Oh, and it just so happens that the bomb is in this place. But typically, you just kind of really want to quickly, like, drone a room like this. You don't really, because you need to check that room immediately, because you can just kind of do that, and then you'll see if anyone's ultimately in there. And that's kind of like really all you kind of have to do. You can obviously scan, you can like ping stuff and everything, but ultimately you can kind of like just kind of like jump around and hit whatever. And of course, once you are happy to go in, you just simply, you know, do your little thing. Maybe, oh yeah, I got you. And that's kind of like how you would enter in through here. Now, the good thing is that you are now in here. What do you do? Great question. You do that. Now, always, it might not be like that, but it gives you a better access to site. Gives you access to now not only to see if anyone's like here, but also to see if anyone's like down there, if anyone's like over there, if anyone's like peeking around here, in here. It gives you great access just to like the entirety of sight, and just kind of lets you like, you know, get in and around sight a little bit more. But ultimately, this ideally isn't where you even like be rushing, because it's not like the most ideal area to rush. We're gonna go out the same way we came in, and we're probably actually gonna pick up the drone, because it will be useful over here. Now, funnily enough, if they are in the basement, you are going to want to spawn here. This is, you know, construction site. It will tell you where this is on the little screen where you pick where you spawn in, and you want to kind of come over here, and ultimately this isn't like necessarily like the best place for like Ash to be. You wouldn't even want to like use your breach charge against this. You would kind of just want to shoot it open. Ultimately, this might already be open, because here, you know, like there could be like a smoke or a clash. Yeah, maybe like a shield operator to like keep you like outside. But if you do get inside, you know, you would check here. You know, you would check there. There's gonna be like maybe a mirror here. But ultimately, like thinking about mirrors, this is definitely a wall that they would probably mirror. You know, because she can just like have you know, a better access to like maybe operators coming in through this way, and be able to get like them like here. Another like interesting mirror spot could be like here, but typically you would probably want to go for like a spot like here. And funnily enough, if you are actually like playing a different operator that's not designed for rushing, which I know isn't necessarily relevant here, but like let's say you're playing like Nook, typically, you know, your main issue would be like Cav or whatever, but like let's say that you come in like through here, you want to like come down, you know, like this is a really interesting spot, because typically, you know, you could expect someone to be like here, or like, you know, just peeking over there. Wouldn't really expect anyone here. This is a really bad spot to be if you're a defender. But this wall will typically maybe be like mirrored, so this isn't necessarily like an incredible rush spot either. It's honestly like not like insane to rush like this. Of course, like all the hatches will be like closed, so that's like not too like terribly like difficult to like, you know, do things or whatever. But of course, like if you are kind of like breaching in from here, and you know, you kind of like specifically want to, you know, you've cleared out you know, you've got everyone that you kind of need to get. Around here is a wall that really should have a little like hidey hole here, but if it doesn't, that's not really like a big issue. You just boom, boom, and this opens up sight so much. I know there definitely will be a rotation hole there. So this just gives you access to like everything. You know, obviously you have just got like the operators that are here. You come around, maybe like someone was in there. You know, you blah 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 blah. You get them. Typically there's gonna be someone maybe in that room. There's gonna be someone definitely like on that site at least. And then you come around here, you get that mirror, and that's realistically kind of like how you would like rush in a way to get to a site like this, get that plant down. You feel me? And then typically, you know, you could see like a shield operator coming from like this way, like a blitz trying to push these people, you know, back through there. trying to get these anchors off of site because they can't do anything about this wall either. And that's honestly kind of like really what you would do in this kind of situation, of course. Now there is an alternative path that you can take for some of these things. Typically you can get in through like one of the like this door. You can get in through like that door. You know, realistically there are a lot of like ways to get in. You should always be wary of like up here, because you know typically like if like there's a vigil with the boss G, that could honestly kind of be an issue at some point maybe. But up here is like the watchtower. This is a pretty interesting place that you can breach. Now of course we do have like a breach charge at this point, so you would just like put it down, and of course, and look, you have access to this site as well. You know, there's a lot of util being used, sure, but you know, this is alternatively like another way you can get in. You got them. Usually this would be like open either here or here. But of course, you know, this also gives you like ample room into like site, kind of thing. And ultimately, you know, there's gonna be someone here, you get them and such. And look at that, like we have killed everyone on this map technically, or we would have, with just, you know, one complete gun of bullets, which is realistically not that bad. So of course what we're going to do now is we're going to back out, we're going to go into a different map, and we'll go over that as well. Okay, so now we are in a custom game for Clubhouse, and we're kind of just going to immediately go in. We're once again on the attacking side. I think the bomb it'll probably be upstairs. And this map is, I think, better. Not necessarily for rushing, but kind of just like getting to places, because like you never want to go like one of these all the time. I would say main gate is definitely your best option. And I think fundamentally, Ash is probably like the best operator you could rush with on this map, so we're gonna once again choose her. And I would say mainly, if you are gonna rush, it will be with Ash, right? Okay, so now we are here. We can just search for bombs if we wish to. But ultimately, I don't really think it's that important to search for them right now, since we'll just kind of find them anyways. So, we're here, and there's a site like over that way, and like down there, and in the basement. Typically, you know, you're going to get spawn peeked if you like go here, like here, if they're upstairs in bedroom. If they're like over here, that's completely fine. You know, you can take it any angle you want, really. This place will be like probably reinforced, and some operator will have something on there. So if you were to be attacking this, without kind of like just rushing in there, because you can't necessarily really do that with Ash. You'd simply, you know, shoot this door down. You'd end up kind of, you know, oh, look at my drone. And you would like kind of see, like, are they up in rafters? You know, what kind of util do they have on rafters? You know, is there like a vault cam in like a sneaky place, like up here? Because I know you can definitely put one up here in a sneaky place. And is there anyone like on shop floor? Is there anyone like kind of like down here, like waiting for you? Typically, you know, they kind of will be up here in the rafters, probably like behind one of these things. But as we can see, there's like a wall here that, you know, isn't always going to be reinforced. And of course, you know, we can just make our way onto site, if this was site. Of course it's not, but typically the bomb would be like there and like here. Um, and obviously there's multiple ways to tackle this, depending on it. If this is the site or not the site, obviously there's a way for breaches to do it. There's honestly kind of like a nice little like fun way for like maybe even probably Blackbeard to like come up these stairs and do it. And of course, obviously, I would say the main way is definitely to come through a garage and kind of like tackle it like that. So we see, the things that we're doing. We see like, oh, maybe there's like an up here like smoke, or I would say probably like Fen. Fen's probably like something that we could see up here. Maybe even like, I guess kind of Wamai could be up here, if you want to be like kind of semi-realistic. So yeah, you would like, I got you, I got you, and like maybe, oh, like I got you, or you're hiding behind the bikes for some reason, like I got you. And of course these are reachable walls as well. This is another way in, a way that they typically don't always expect, but someone can definitely be like spawn peeking from down here if you're not careful. So now that we're up, we want to like kind of like see what's going on over there. This might be barricaded up depending on like everything that your enemies are like kind of like doing, and typically this won't be barricaded up depending on like obviously everything you're trying to do. So yeah, obviously this is like a little like walkway up in the place. And typically you don't even need to use your breach charges here. I of course would never recommend being this close to like a little like you are like here, they can see your like little red dot. You're like, oh yeah, let's swing, let's get this smoke. You try and shoot, boom, your head is clean off. So I would honestly kind of suggest like maybe backing up a little bit, and ultimately if this is kind of like being able to be breached, then of course I would take out my thing, and honestly, yeah, I would probably go about there, because this gives you access to probably, most of this kind of site. Obviously, it gives you access to like an interesting angle to say the least. And of course, if we obviously back up even more, and we start like kind of like heading down the stairs, as you can see, we kind of like have access to a little bit more. And of course, if we just kind of pick up the drone, pick up the drone. Thank you. We're able to just kind of like schwalk on in. No one's gonna be here. This site isn't necessarily like, yeah, sure, someone might be here, but typically, no one's really in super obvious spots. Honestly, not many people really anchor this kind of site. Maybe they'll be like over here. So like, bah, I got you, and like, typically someone could be like here maybe, or maybe like just kind of like slightly over here, or maybe even like down here, kind of like on the rotate. But typically no one would like really be on site in this situation, because they would all kind of like be around here. And obviously your team's doing a lot as well. So this site is probably very easy to like realistically breach into, get into, because a lot of these people aren't going to be anchoring site. A lot of these people are going to be in garage, or like anchoring kind of like on these stairs, or maybe honestly in like construction. And this is another site actually, but they can still honestly anchor a lot in bedroom if they want to be off site. But speaking of bedroom, obviously there's ways to like breach bedroom. There are like these windows and such. But the main thing you want to do is you want to drop this hatch. Of course, this is always kind of like dangerous, like dropping in, but you can definitely like get someone here. Someone is sometimes under this desk, 100%. You can get in there. Someone will always like kind of maybe be in there. And someone will always, I mean always, just be chilling like over like here, like standing right here to like get you, or get you on the stairs, or get you there. So honestly, or get you here. So honestly, this is like a pretty good like defender like position to be in. Especially considering, look, you can shoot that. There's smoke. They don't really know who's shooting, but you don't know who. So obviously, like you're down here maybe. Um, the Roma, maybe you've got the Roma. Maybe the Roma was like down, here. Maybe not really in kitchen, but like somewhere around here. They've been, oh look, the Roma's like here, and you're like in kitchen maybe, because honestly kitchen's a pretty good spot to like enter, except if like someone's like sitting right here with like a mirror or like a shield. But like if someone's over there and you don't feel like doing that, you just do that a little bit, shoot this a little bit. I you dump a couple of bullets in there, and then they're just gonna set on fire. Probably, honestly, probably just try and get back, but they're all gonna be like, oh. So I really wouldn't worry about that too much. And then you would honestly come up the stairs. There's probably gonna be like barbed wire and like a thing. They do have this, but ultimately, like they can't get you from here. So you just get rid of that. You're not in danger anymore. You can kind of just like maybe reconsider pushing up the stairs. You can always drone it if you want, but then you're at risk. But yeah, again, you're very open, but like kind of not at the same time. It's just really who has like the better trigger finger at this point. And of course, they could always, kind of swing you from like this position or from this position. So it's like ultimately it's up to you on how you want to tackle like this kind of site if you're like specifically rushing. But ultimately, I think the stupidest site to rush is definitely definitely bar, because I mean like fundamentally rushing bar is kind of pointless, especially considering you would all technically be rushing bar. Oh, another drone for me to pick up, eh? But yeah, ultimately, bar is just like, oh, maybe someone's like, anchoring here. That someone will definitely be in here, because you'll probably want to get through here. Because that's like a pretty good entry site for this. And once you're in, maybe somebody's like peering like here, and you just take them out. Someone's like in there as well, you take them out. Someone's like here, like maybe someone was like in garage, like, and then you can just take them out pretty easily. And that's really all you kind of have to do to take a site like this. But now we kind of have to talk about basement a little bit, because that one's a little bit tricky. There are a couple ways into basement that I think don't work for a rush unless it's a full team rush. Because obviously you have this, you'll have the rafters, you have like here, and you have a way to drop down. Typically no one will be in here unless they're like ridiculously stupid. So you'll be good. I would say probably like either one or two operators are going to be down here, which can stop your entry with this. Typically though, I would say not to worry. Of course, there is this way in as well, which of course leads here. And not many people chill up here, so I think you'll be pretty okay to like come down here. So this is a great like team like push area, because it gives you access to both this wall and this wall, which will never really be reinforced. And the bombs being over there and like over here is pretty important as well. Funnily enough, like, honestly, I think in terms of if you kind of like want to rush, I would say definitely the stairs, or maybe, you come through kitchen, maybe this window, or like that door, you want to take this down. Um, you won't really be able to unless you have like a harder like breach charge, which I don't think like many attacking characters like have as like a secondary gadget, but of course you would come down here. There's no real issue with this being popped because honestly, like nobody wants to like overextend their position like this much. Trying to focus on like this because you can just see. Look at that red dot. Like you don't want to mess with that. So I would say that you have like no real issues like coming like out this close because even if they do try push up, you obviously you've got them down there, and if you like come over here and like, well, look at how much they have to come up to be able to like see you because you can like pretty much see here from like up there, but you're gonna be like there, so they have to push up this much to be able to like see you from like at this position, you know? So coming down here, obviously like once you get like here, this is like kind of like a bad spot maybe, but if you would just like have decent aim, you can definitely take them down. Get everything going here. Typically like if you are like just trying to open up this kind of like area, I would 100% like consider using this to like blow like this up. Cause like that gives you like a decent like way to see like into the site, like deeper. Cause like close is like interesting. Cause like realistically, nobody's gonna be here, right? Cause yeah, sure they could be like watching this, but like realistically, as soon as you do that, they're gonna be watching this like a hawk, and to be able to like even see you, like they would have to come out like so far wide, and like even like behind the bomb, like they can only get you from there, but you would ideally be like here, so they have so much exposure for you to just like be able to get them first. You know what I mean? Because most of their body is going to be showing here. And of course, like, if you are over here, you can, like, see them over there a lot easier. But honestly, like, here's, like, a pretty big thing. Here is, like, a place where, like, I think, like, an ace could probably breach. But yeah, once you are honestly, like, deep into this, like, area, or if like maybe like a shield like rushes here with like a hard breach, and is like pushing on this kind of site, and like there's people like pushing over there and you're pushing over here, it all really just kind of like falls apart very very quickly. So I would say like the util of like Ash on a lot of these maps is kind of just to get the better angles on these kinds of sites. You don't typically have to use them, like as soon as possible. It's not like necessary, and of course, she's great for like extension of like site like area. So typically, especially like down here in like this site, like they're never gonna have this reinforced, so if you have like none of your breach charges left, you can just pull out these, and typically you just bam. Once again, the site has been extended for like a little bit, and of course, like let's say that like, ooh, you are maybe on the roof, which, I mean, fundamentally, you can be on the roof if you would like to be on the roof. But if you are on the roof, and this matters quite a bit, I would say, for like Ash, typically, you know, there is a hatch up here that is honestly in a pretty great position. So, you know, you just pull it out, you like put it down, and obviously, you know, you can then move away, is what I'm saying. And you decide when it comes up, you know, you could technically be standing on it if you wanted to, and you could just drop straight down into it. This wall's probably going to be breached, but someone's like a mirror is going to be there, so you get the mirror, you get whoever's like under the table if they are, and maybe someone in here. But that's kind of all you have to worry about. There's not much play that goes on in like bathroom, the pool room, this room. But again, all of these are kind of like extenders, I would say, for like how you want to tackle this with like maybe a full team. So that is ultimately, I would say, how you would like get into and extend site presence, based on like how you would be tackling it from like maybe this kind of spawn, because this is probably the best spawn for like quite a lot of sites. Obviously depending on which kind of rushing you want to do. So we're going to go back to the menu now and come back in. And here we are on Chalet, right? Now, this time, even though I do think Ash is ultimately definitely the up you want to rush with, I'm now going to use a different rusher, and that will be the one that will typically be able to kind of, you know, I would say maybe, yeah, I would say probably you would maybe consider Blitz at this point. Or at least in certain cases you would choose Blitz on some of these maps, because ultimately, like, we see, you know, look, we have Blitz. He is slow. He can look around, but he is slow, right? But he can run. So you would typically get like spawn peeked from here if you were not careful, if you were like trying to go over here or whatnot. But ultimately it kind of doesn't really matter too much. We're gonna take away the shield just for now. Makes us like slightly slower, I believe. But if we're talking about like places of kind of like entry, I would definitely say like this is a place of entry, and you know, kind of like a great spot to like kind of get in, right? Because it's very open, which means you're open to like attackers from there, and like up there, and maybe somebody lying down there for some reason. There's also a wall here that will definitely actually just be like reinforced though, because in here there's a site that extends into this kitchen, and this is really, like, honestly sometimes this like room really confuses me because I really don't know why it's even here, except for like extension for like operators to like come down here and do their business. But I would say that is, you know, definitely probably one of the better ways to kind of get into this site, just through that main door. And obviously, if you can clear out someone from up there, maybe someone in here, maybe someone in here, you'll notice that there is oh, yeah, something here. I didn't think it would be in here, but there's a bomb there, and an extension into this site. But realistically, if you're pushing into this site, it's not a great idea to rush, in all honesty. because you can get your extension um of like sight of the entire map by like clearing out maybe someone from here in this site, because typically they might be like behind the bomb, like, oh, here, but then they're pretty open like over here. And obviously if you're like clearing out everything, this site no one is really going to be in. It's the other one that you really have to worry about. But depending on like whether this is open or not, it's kind of like very like loose cannony. And of course you need to consider the fact that we have a shield, the fact that obviously once we're in, and we kind of like get through here, we can kind of take a couple of bullets, and our team will probably be right behind us in this situation. Wow, just look at all of those, prompts. But of course, we're in here. No one's really far enough away from us that we can't, of course, flush them. But of course, like, this will probably be open. Maybe this is probably the most dangerous place for you to be as like a defender, because like obviously you're pretty open to attacks from all sides. This is a pretty interesting spot for attackers to like be coming from, especially as like blitz. But typically you'll either have someone like on these stairs, either up or down. Somebody is almost never in here, but it's still something to consider, considering you literally have nothing on your back to stop you. So like you come in here, typically this is open. This might have like a mirror depending on like, if they want to drop hatch, which is usually always reinforced, or like someone's trying to come in through here, they're trying to do something, but maybe they've got like a warden, and like you kind of just gotta like go with the flow at this point. You put it down, everything's good. So I really don't think, but this is never going to be the site that they're using, kind of, I would say probably the more impactful site downstairs is this one. Because ultimately there's a lot of breachable walls, and they don't have enough to reinforce everything. And typically you can go through the front, you can go through here, although there's probably going to be like two defenders kind of like anchoring this point. You can come up from the top if you wish to, but that's not really something Blitz should be doing anyways. So yeah, just overall, you just need Blitz to push certain operators out of one site into the other, which I think is great for that bomb site. Not typically really great for that bomb site. And before we go downstairs, we've got to go upstairs to discuss the upstairs. Okay, so like once we get upstairs, like we've made our way across, we've gotten rid of like anyone that we need to get rid of. We've got our shield out, like we're checking it out. We're down here, we're just kind of seeing what's up. Typically, this could be a site, and of course it's, can this be a site? Sometimes I forget. No. Yeah? Yes. But not a bomb site. But yeah, this could be a site on like secure the area, which I guess you might play like once or twice. But typically another bomb site is like this kind of like area, like if you come into like this bedroom, typically like the bomb will be like here, and if you come over into this room, the bomb is usually like here, I want to say. And of course, like you can ultimately not really extend Blitz in through like this way, although he isn't like exactly useless to like maybe like take a few hits and stuff, because he does have a little bit of health. But ultimately, I would say he's kind of useless on this end. But let's say you come up from this point, because of the way his shield works, you can just kind of like maneuver it up a little bit. See that? Yeah. Look at that. And then you've got like abilities to like look around and stuff. So you can look around even if your shield is pointed up. And that's kind of really important. Because you want to like kind of, be looking like this a little bit. And of course, you want to check up here. You're very open to everything. But realistically, they're just going to throw like a C4 if they have it. So you can like very easily come up here. Maybe there's like someone down here, but like they'll definitely be taken care of at some point. And typically this is like a very dangerous spot for like attackers to like even be fundamentally, because you can very easily get into sight over here, or even over here. And realistically, this is such a great place to like scare off defenders like into sights. Especially like if they are overextending themselves into like this bathroom, or maybe even like in there, or especially in there. Like you run into this site. Like what are they gonna do? You're gonna flash them. They're gonna like shoot their entire round just at your shield, and then you pull it out. They're gone. And you're completely safe at this point because you can just reload behind your shield. And of course, if someone is in here, they're kind of screwed. Of course, like they can always rotate, make a rotate to bathroom and such, but you can just follow them, right? So you kind of like can push enemies like this way, maybe into this site, which of course they can definitely be caught from like over here in piano. And ultimately, this is just like pushing them like out of like sight or like into sight, which is like incredibly like aggressive and such. And of course, like the last site is in basement. And typically, like if you are like a blitz, you could definitely like come down here, kind of like ruin their day, like take bullets and whatnot, and maybe you'll get hit with like a Fenrir, but ultimately that kind of doesn't really matter too much, since most of the time like the team will try to breach here. You'll be like pushing like down here, and even though you can like come down here, I would say that your lack of firepower is really supremely important when you're considering you are not trying to kill these people. You are just trying to push them into a position to be killed. So like you push them out. They're trying to focus on this. They're trying to like stop any pushes from like over here, and you are just like making your way through here, pushing through here. Like, oh no, there's a blitz, and like they're trying to like push in so many different ways, and you're kind of like pushing them into this site, which is realistically not where like all of them want to be. I would say that ultimately in this site you would kind of just want someone to like stop the breach here, and you would have like a mirror that would like maybe have a little bit of like source, with like her mirror would just be like on this unreinforced wall, and then you would have like a reinforced wall here and like a little rotate. That's ultimately what I think you would like do. You would like mirror up these two walls. You would just like completely stop these, because ultimately like they're just gonna reinforce this, so you are completely safe to like have any kind of push here. Although I would still recommend like going to blue, the blue L, as I like to call it, and kind of like getting them into a position that can be controlled by your team, and that's kind of the role that you want Blitz to play overall. and so like he's an incredible like team rusher, um, in that regard. And of course, if you want to like open hatches or like drop them or like open up like walls in specific sites, which I mean, I don't really think many of these walls won't be reinforced, and of course, like there are always walls that will be reinforced, won't be reinforced. Typically, this hatch wouldn't really need to be reinforced because they drop into here and they're just like in between like gunfire and such. So you would never really use it on like one of these sites, but like if you obviously like go upstairs or like are at a site that's like at the highest point, you would ideally want to use it on like breachable kind of situations depending on what site it is. And so yeah, that's kind of like the overall point of like an operator that can like push the enemies into a position where they're compromised. So yep, gonna go back to the menu, gonna go over I think the last map that you should be concerned about. Okay, so this is another map, Night Haven. Um, Probably one of like the better maps for like an actual breacher. So probably if you were using an operator, you would use Ash on this map very specifically. And so we are actually going to run Ash on this map because this is like the second to last map that I'm gonna go over. And of course, depending on like your map knowledge and such, typically a very good like point that people like breach from, depending on the site, is up here. Typically, this wall won't really be reinforced, or if it is, someone else will deal with it. So it is never like necessarily a good thing for you to use your breach charge on a wall like this that isn't going to like overextend too much. But if you are like trying to get into the site, this place is not really an incredible place to like solo rush or rush in general. I mean, of course, you can shoot down this wall, this door, and then like, oh, you have access to like this hallway. Maybe like someone's gonna be kind of like sat there. Definitely, probably sat in this room. There's probably gonna be someone like roaming downstairs. But of course, like if you are gonna come downstairs, I would definitely say coming through here is probably what's best. Again, you can definitely like use Ash's ability in a way that will actually get you to site a lot quicker. But again, this pretty much isn't like a site that you're gonna want to do that on anyways. Oh, speaking of which, like coming through like here, and you'll see this on other maps as well, is a really good sound cue for defenders. But ultimately, like no one really even pays too much attention to that. Unless like it's quiet, so maybe you should make a distraction. Of course, like you could always like get through there. Of course, like it's kind of like a waste of resources at that point. So you're like coming through here, you get whoever's in here. This is honestly such a pretty useful place to like get like down like unironically like a breach charge if you can. There might be like someone like hiding there, someone like hiding here. And of course, like this is like a tricky area. Of course, you can just like laser them if you like pre-fire and stuff. But ultimately, like it's more likely for this site to maybe have like reinforcements and like disruption like here, up here, on like one of these walls. And like maybe these walls if you need to, over here, like, obviously, like, if we come down, this is another way that you could definitely get to the site, because that's where we, like, walk in through. We kind of, like, clear downstairs, you know, make sure everything's, like, okay. And typically there might be someone in these stairs, depending on, like, you know, how much, pushing is being done from, like, this kind of site. This is, like, this will probably be reinforced, but it won't be electric, so it's not really that big of a deal. So you shouldn't really worry too much about that. Maybe there's someone, like, down here, or, like, maybe over here. And I would say probably your biggest risk, like, here is just, like, how tightly knit the actual site is. Because, you know, like, you honestly should probably, like, come from down there. Unironically, this is probably, like, the best place you would come from. So real quick, if I just, like, leave the building, and it has been such a long time, since I've even, like, you know, done something like this, but ultimately, what you kind of would want to do is you'd want to, like, shoot up, like, here, and, like, you would just immediately rush in, and you shouldn't really, like, have to worry about, like, any of this, but obviously, you know, like, once you're, like, in the building, and of course, like, you would run in, like, as it's, like, blowing up, you have, like, pretty much nothing stopping you, from just, like, you know, coming up here, maybe and, like, because ultimately, like, they don't really expect it too much, you know, everyone's, like, dead on sight, because you're, like, the GOAT, and that's kind of really, like, the only ways I would suggest you break your way onto the site, and of course, you know, this is, like, probably, like, the most, you know, kind of popular site. It's a great way to get down. Now this site I really kind of don't like, you know, pretty much because, and again, it's not like an unwinnable site for the attacker, but I mean, it's one of those, again, tightly knit sites, like upstairs. Now, of course, I wouldn't recommend rushing this site at all, because, like, the util that they have is going to be so packed up, and obviously, like, you're not going to be able to, like, get through here. Getting through here is kind of, like, an issue. That will probably be reinforced, same with this wall. And so I would recommend that you could maybe get in through here, maybe get in, like, through the bottom, or, you know, even coming, like, from all the way over here would not be a bad idea, because then at least, you know, you have, like, a way to, like, get anyone that's, like, here, right? And so you try and make your way onto site. This is a very, very kind of, like, difficult site to, like, get into, I would say. Especially considering, like, ultimately, like, the only way you can is, like, through that hatch, realistically, but then again, it's, like, unless you're, like, getting people to, like, line up in front of you on this window as you rush in, there's not really a way I would say that you can, like, rush into this site effectively. Now, there is a site that's, like, kind of, like, over here. I don't care for it much. You know, you'll never really see, like, a site like that anyways, but you could then, of course, see, like, down here. Now, of course, like, Ash isn't necessarily just for rushes, but 100%, if you're going to rush this site, I would honestly probably consider this, because ultimately, like, it's not, like, a difficult site to get into. It's more of, like, a very open space. Maybe this will be open. Of course, you know, like, they can't reinforce everything. It is a pretty difficult, like, site to get your head around, especially, like, oh, you come over, like, here, and, like, you know, then you're in sight. Maybe someone's like trying to breach from like the outside. Because you know there's like a place down here where like a lot of people breach, so there's definitely going to be someone in here that you can ultimately kind of get to from over there. There's probably going to be someone like down maybe like here, or like over there. There most likely will be someone in this site anchoring this site, and then maybe someone like roaming like around kind of here, or maybe they're upstairs. So I ultimately like do feel like, you know, if you're coming from this end, like, yeah, it's fine, it's all good, but there is going to be someone here, maybe on the stairs, or waiting like somewhere around your entry point, which of course would be here at like a different spawn. But ultimately, I think Ash in like this kind of like setting is not only useful for like getting to the site as quick as possible, but also like overextending, especially like down here. I would never say that like all of these are gonna be like this will be open, and like honestly, I don't think this would be open, but like there isn't many like things that you can like necessarily open up that will be too useful. Maybe like if you're in like this site, and because I don't necessarily think that they would open this kind of like thing up, but if you are looking for like a way to just like extend like site like which would help you like in a way, definitely I would bust open this wall if you are kind of looking for a way to extend to this site, which of course this would already be open. In fact, we're actually going to open it just to show, you know, kind of like, oh, this is what that would kind of look like. So yeah, it's very clear that, you know, you can sort of like extend site a lot just by being over here. You know, and of course, like, you can see, like, out there kind of stuff. And, but you wouldn't really, like, worry about this kind of site too much, since you'd probably just be coming from down here anyways, with maybe someone, like, trying to stop you over here. And in terms of operators that I think would be, like, the most terrifying in like these kinds of situations, honestly I wouldn't be like worried about like Capcan, because ultimately like on sites like this you're not really rushing anyways, so you have time to get rid of util. On sites like upstairs, I would say the most I would be scared of is like maybe like a trapper like Thorn or Capcan maybe, because you know they are fairly good at anchoring, you know, and I know Capcan has like a C4. They'll probably have like a Warden maybe, because obviously you're going to try and like kind of like flash them if you're all pushing like in one way. But yeah, Ash is just very like good to like get on that site instantly, kind of, you know, have that impact like over here, so that everyone can have an impact over like here. That being said, ultimately I kind of feel like her role as like an extender of site is also pretty useful overall. Which is something, you know, like the Blackbeard does. He overextends as well, or like he makes his presence known, and he just kind of can stick. And obviously, Blitz can be used in a couple of these. I wouldn't say Blitz is at all useful on this kind of site, but definitely like if you want to like push, like maybe like this site, if you ever end up on this site. Blitz could maybe be useful here, and I do think vertical play is kind of useful at this point as well, which I don't really think Ash should be used for, but you could. Buck is definitely probably one of the more useful operators, like here, or like Ram, maybe. who I think is another great, not rusher, but like entry into site. So I do think maybe entering like through here with Ash is definitely like best for like the basement and like this side and up here. So that's it, yeah. And gonna go back to the menu, and I'll be back. Finally, we are on a cafe. Uh, Dostoyevsky. If you ever want to say the full name, but it's just cafe to most people. Now on this map, we're going to be using Blackbeard. I wouldn't say he's the most useful on this map, but he definitely has some usability, especially with that shield. Because obviously, like, he's not the quickest, but you'll see someone might like rush from like here. They might be like up here. They might be like over there, or they might even get you from this window if you're not careful. If you're spawning from this way, or like up here if you are like coming out this way. And I do feel like this is like the best place to kind of like spawn in general. You do have some usability depending on site to like spawn in over here, but ultimately like it isn't that important. But of course we will just put the shield away. You can definitely like spawn around here, maybe get in on the action over in kitchen. But again, Blackbeard I would say isn't really here for a short time. He's here for the entire ride, I would say. So depending on like where you spawn, obviously that would help you in different ways. If you're trying to like rush like up there, you would spawn on the opposite of the map where we just spawn. If you trying to rush like kitchen, then I think honestly you would probably like either come from here or like come over there. There is also some definite like usability, but that's more for like operators that like don't have like such a long lifespan. So ultimately, like if you were like to come like through here, you know, you could breach through this. You know, you could, and you know you'd have like maybe someone like over like on the stairs that you'd be able to like take care of, because obviously, you know. But honestly, I wouldn't ultimately try to take names too quick. You know, there is always the possibility that they just have better aim than you, and obviously that's not great if you're trying to, you know, get someone. It's like, oh, they see me, I see them, we both, you know, right click at the same time, I'm already dead. You know, so just be conservative with the way you play. Maybe take someone with you, and you're just there for to be a problem. You know, like Blackbeard is ultimately here to be a problem. Someone might be in here, someone might be like around here. You know, especially if you're coming from like here or the main door, which is typically where you would want to come in, especially like if you're pushing like a side like this, or you could come in through there. But ultimately, Blackbeard is trying to make his presence known. You know, you would like maybe come in through here. They would probably have this barricaded. You know, like you'd breach in through the barricade. You know, stuff like that. And ultimately, like the kind of presence that you want is that of like someone who can like get through like, you know, stuff pretty easily. And of course, like all of this is usually going to be reinforced. Typically like stuff like this wouldn't be too reinforced. So like if you are stuck in here and maybe like we can't like get through the door and we're good over there, you know, you'd come up and simply put, you would just breach through this. And ultimately, that gives you a lot more room than you would think. Because obviously, now, like, they can, if they were like an Ace or like a Hibana, and this wall's like not electrified, because like ultimately, kind of like, why would it all the time? Usually like either this wall isn't electrified or this wall isn't electrified. So like Hibana or Ace can like break that. Because you don't want to push your way in too quickly, because they might have, you know, someone like in here, or, you know, and obviously like one of these is gonna be like maybe reinforced with like a mirror, and one of these might be reinforced with a mirror, so it's like pretty important that, you know, you take this breach in a proper way, because ultimately a lot of these walls are going to be reinforced anyways, and, you know, you will be useful for like extension, or like getting onto like these things that'll help, you know, maybe get in here, get stuck in, kind of thing, make your way like onto site kind of quickly. And ultimately, like, if you are getting in properly, then everything's going to be fine for the team. Now, in terms of, you know, sites that are, like, upstairs, you know, you have, like, different ways to go. You have these lovely, lovely red stairs that'll take you up to the middle floor, which I do think is an okay place to be. If they are in like a, you know, this site, then ultimately I wouldn't necessarily say that they're gonna like reinforce all of this, because that's quite a lot of like effort. Although they could if they wanted to. You know, they have resources available to them, but ultimately, you know, there's no like real typical way that I would like rush this area. If anything, I would probably use fuse to fuse this place out, which is like a baby move, but you know, it's fine. And obviously, you know, this is like another pretty good site, but very easily like takeable if you per se like rappel rappel up this building. You'll have like, they'll have access to that window to like maybe jump down and get you, but you've got a shield and they have terrible aim, because everyone who jumps out does have terrible aim. So you'll come through here, you'll kind of like, maybe there'll be someone up there, maybe there'll be someone like around like here with like all these pillars, all these columns, and you can kind of very easily take this site. And of course, this is definitely something that you can do with Blitz as well. Push them out of this side, push them into the other one, in which like you could definitely like end up like breaching one of these kinds of walls. It's ultimately up to you how you take that, but yeah, that's kind of like what I would do in that situation. Just kind of like push them out of sight using him, and just kind of like staying there, being a presence that's going to be difficult to deal with. Whilst your team is also like pushing up. Now this is a very different site. In terms of rushing, there is only probably one character that can like really rush a site, or like sites plural, like this, and I would say Amaru, because ultimately she is a rusher that I did not want to talk about, but I kind of need to talk about right now, because this is a vertical map, full of a lot of like sites that are like upstairs that you're going to like have to like actually come up stairs to get to, and she can like get in through like any one of these ways. Definitely would not recommend it though. I've never seen her like come up through this way, but there's always going to be like a frost mat down there anyway, so I wouldn't do that. This is like almost like always going to be like had something done to it. But yeah, if you are gonna like, maybe like breach through like stuff or something, you could like definitely like use this, like you would rappel up, and of course you could then actually enter and break this at the same time. This is a great place to like not rush, because like I feel like it would be too slow for a rush, but if you were like rushing with like, let's say, Maru, you could definitely get through this window or that window and you'll be like relatively safe, right? And that's kind of like what you want to focus on with these kinds of sites. um, Using your util sparingly, because you only do have like 3 breakable surfaces you can get through, and of course, like if if you're in a place like this, typically I I'm struggling to remember if, because I'm pretty sure they do kind of just chill in here. They reinforce like most of these. I really don't think they reinforce this, but like that's probably um for a good reason. Uh, yeah, because I really don't think there is any need in reinforcing this, because someone's always gonna be like keeping an eye on like these kinds of sites. In terms of like where I would like use the other like shield bashes though, probably like on one of these lower sites, probably like down here, because like there'll probably be like a way for you to like overextend into one of these sites. Depending on kind of like what kind of they're doing. So like maybe like you're down here, because I know they're probably gonna want to keep one of these walls free. Maybe it's always good to have like one of these walls taken care of, no matter what kind of site. So if they're like in a site that's like over there, it's honestly pretty good to like have a breach like here from your teammates, for your teammates, to like maybe do a little bit of work here whilst not overextending their position, and kind of keeping them safe. So that's kind of like how I would play with like Blackbeard. Of course, once you're in sight, you have access to like claymores and stuff, which you can just ideally put wherever you want, where you feel is right. I'm not gonna go into like optimal positions, because ultimately that's just not how this works. It's not how the game works at all. But ultimately, yeah, just kind of like using these shield bashes as like a way to get through a surface, maybe sometimes into sight, maybe sometimes to extend, breaches, positions to be able to breach without, putting them at any kind of risk. That's ultimately what I would do with this operator, and that's probably what's honestly kind of best. Just using him for like kind of longevity. And ultimately, like, these are probably all the maps that you're going to be playing all the time. Not really doing many other maps, not really breaching in many other ways, not really rushing in much different ways, I would say. But that's kind of like everything that you would need to know about these 5 maps. How to breach, where to breach, what ideally your role as a breacher is, and it's fairly basic as well. It's not difficult. It's not too much, and ultimately, it's not a set in stone way of doing things either, if you want to talk about it in that sense. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to the menu now. So that's it from me. I've went over everything I feel like I needed to. I've done everything that I think I've needed to. I've essentially done everything that would help people understand kind of a core function of the game. Uh, and hopefully it's usable. Hopefully it's good enough from someone who understands the game a little bit, um, and hopefully nothing changes too much in the game that's gonna make this completely unusable. So yeah, that's it. Um, yeah, see you, man.